welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/087, and you can email the show pedalshift@pedalshift.net. You can check the show out also on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the 87th edition of the Pedalshift Project. I'm Tim Mooney, back again. I hope you're all having a wonderful July. It is sultry and hot here in Washington, D.C. I just spent the weekend in the great state of Oklahoma visiting my girlfriend Kimberly's family. We saw Garth Brooks. Yes, I saw another Garth Brooks show. He's good. I'm totally into country music. I know. Hey, if you're into country music, I'm super happy for you. It is not part of my upbringing, but when I go to these shows and I get to see my girlfriend geek out on Garth Brooks, it always puts a smile on my face. So I've gone to a lot of Garth Brooks shows in the past couple of years. Anyways, it was exciting to go to that. It was exciting to see things there. Saw some bikey things. Interesting stuff. There is apparently a bike touring centric shop outside of the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is nowhere near where I was. I was more in the Oklahoma City area. But that's kind of cool to see that. Also, I got kind of like an interesting thought process about doing maybe the Route 66 ride at some point, which I believe goes through Oklahoma. It may even go through Oklahoma City. I would do that not in the summer, though. It is so hot there. If you're listening from Oklahoma, you are probably enjoying a nice sultry day. So hopefully this will help cool you all down. On this episode of the Pedalshift Project, we've got some fun stuff in the journal, including more hot talk, a heat index ride, and some gear talk on this episode, some connections, including some amazing news from Alaska Airlines. First up on the show is the journal, and the journal's the part where we talk about my rides, your rides, things like that. Hey, by the way, I haven't heard from your rides in a while. If you have a ride you'd like to share, whether it's an overnight or it's some huge, cool expeditionary style, gravel grinding, rural thing, whatever you want, feel free to reach out to the show. You can contact the show, pedalshift@pedalshift.net. You can call the lightly used hotline. The lightly used hotline is available for you. But on this episode, we're going to be talking more about my tours. I'm going to be doing probably a 24-hour ride. I've been busy with travel. I've been busy with work. I'm kind of getting the itch again. It's only been a few weeks since the Western Penn ride. And oh, by the way, I hope you get a chance to take a listen to the Western Penn edition of Tour Journals. Go check that out over at pedalshift.net/westernpenn. That was featured, of course, on last episode as well. But this weekend, I am looking to just get an overnight in. This is the time of year when sometimes I just don't have a ton of time to do a long weekend or a major type of ride, but I do have the opportunity just in terms of the dogs are going to be taken care of. Kimberly's got stuff that she's doing. She can be at home. It all works out, and it's good for me to get a ride in. And so this weekend, I'm just going to do a little bit of a C&O ride. Looking at the weather, though, and apparently there's going to be, I think they call it a heat dome. I call it just fucking hot, but I'm calling it the hashtag heat index ride. And I believe that we're going to be looking at 100 degrees plus, and it also looks like that the heat index, which is a combination of your heat, your temperature, and your humidity, looks like that might be topping out at about 115, give or take, as I plan to depart Friday afternoon. So we'll see how all that goes. I'm going to spend the next couple of days trying to figure out how I want to approach this. I mean, the nice thing is I'm only planning on going out about anywhere between 16 and 25 miles. And, that's still a few hours worth of riding in obviously some pretty uncomfortable heat. I will get a little bit of a canopy. As long as I'm out of the sun, I'm usually a little bit better off. But, I'll do the usual. And I think I've talked about dealing with heat, and maybe this could be a more of a future show, or maybe I'll talk about it next show, all the different strategies I have for dealing with sort of the real extreme heat that we can sometimes get here in the DC area around bike touring. But, I've got a few things to deal with that. I, of course, have the Potomac River there, which is helpful for cooling off in some spots, not all spots. Wouldn't recommend jumping in the river by, say, Great Falls. That would be a bad idea. It's officially not endorsed. I never say no on the show, but I'm going to say no right here. Do not jump into the Potomac River by Great Falls. Not a good idea. Just throwing that out there. That's like professional opinion from me here, Tim Mooney on Pedalshift. Do not jump into the Potomac River by Great Falls. I would say the same. Do not jump into the Niagara River by Niagara Falls. Similar concepts, just slightly different scale. In any event, Heat Index ride this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. I'll talk about it on the next show. It should be a lot of fun. And I'm really looking forward to it. I don't mind extremes when I'm prepared for them. And going into this, I know I'll be prepared. So we'll talk about how I deal with all of that next episode. Next up on the show, Gear Talk. And on this episode of the show, I wanted to go through a few ideas about emergency items. I've heard a lot in recent weeks about people who have fallen into emergency situations while on bike tour, and for all sorts of different reasons, whether it's natural causes or unfortunately man-made causes. But it got me thinking a little bit more about the types of emergency items that I carry or that I sometimes recommend to other people to carry. Just sort of depends on the nature of your trip. And I thought I'd go through this list and share this with you. This sort of goes hand in hand with the emergency fixes episodes that we've had in the past. And I'm going to be doing a revisiting of the emergency fixes episode in the not too distant future as well. These are just all the things to give you a bit of peace of mind. Hopefully you won't ever have to use these things, or you'll be able to use them for non-emergency purposes. But I think that these are things to at least think about. And if you don't have these items or are not interested in carrying these items, think about what these things do in terms of what they give you in an emergency situation. You might be able to figure out something that's an alternative, if you will, for all these things. So anyways, let's jump right into this. The first emergency item that I think you should consider carrying is a credit card battery. And what the heck is that? It is not a battery that powers your credit card. No, it does not. It is not that. It is a credit card sized battery. And I have run into some situations where I am not on tour, but I'm on kind of a day trip. And my phone, for whatever reason, just sort of discharges all of its juice, or I use so much of it that it automatically shuts down. This is an issue in iOS for Apple iPhones. There are no other types of iPhones. They're iPhones. They're all Apple iPhones, I guess. But Apple's iPhone has an interesting and unique problem that when you are really taxing the device from an energy perspective, the phone will automatically shut off if your battery is at a certain low enough power range, because it doesn't want you to drain your battery completely. So if you're doing something really intensive, like you're uploading video or pictures or audio, things that I've done on a few occasions while on the road, it will shut down if it thinks that it might possibly run out of juice in the middle of all of this. And it does not like to turn back on again. You have to put it into a power source. So if you are carrying a device of really any kind, I recommend always having on you some way to, while you're out, maybe in the middle of nowhere, maybe someplace where you can't really plug in any place, like say the C&O towpath. You can tell I've gone through this before, right? A small battery that you always have on you. And they make these wonderful credit card size. They're maybe the thickness of 2 credit cards stacked on each other. Doesn't carry a ton of juice, but it's enough to give you that little boost of power as necessary, whether that's for your phone or a GPS device or any of the variety of different things that we power things. There are all sorts of different brands out there. Go check it out. Go on Amazon, go wherever your local credit card battery shop, to the extent that those exist. I think that this is a really good idea to carry as an emergency item, the credit card size battery. Number 2. This is going to be very helpful for me this weekend that I remember this, and that is an extra bottle of water. Now, why do I say an extra bottle of water? Most of us have cages where we keep our water bottles. I am proposing to you that you put a spare bottle of water someplace in your gear, whether that's at the bottom of a pannier or it is strapped with a bungee onto your rear rack or something along those lines. And it doesn't have to be a bottle. It can be a water bladder. It can be any of a number of different ways to store water. But this is your emergency supply of water. This isn't the one that you're necessarily going to be tapping into at the end. You're tapping into this if you are for some reason delayed. You're drinking more water than you think. You are going beyond what you normally would think would be enough water for you. So I know that for a lot of folks, that means extra weight. I have always been a proponent of the extra bottle of water because I've tapped into my extra bottle of water on more than a few occasions. I think that it's always good to have that because if there's anything that can physically go wrong with you that is preventable, that is dehydration. And it is debilitating when you run into something like that, especially during these hotter months. I find that I go through a lot more water than I normally do, say, in the fall. And that's kind of file under duh, but it's true. So I think that you can never go wrong carrying that extra bottle of water, and you'll be really glad when you have it. One other possible use for the extra bottle of water is if you run into somebody who's run out of water and you can be a good Samaritan on the trail. That can be a really, really helpful thing, and it's a good thing to pay it forward. We know we talked about trail magic on a past episode. You can be the giver of trail magic to somebody who's run out of water. You can help them with your extra bottle. So extra bottle of water. Big time, good deal, emergency use. Subcategory of that, bringing along a water purifier. We're going to talk about that also on a future episode of the show as well. For those of you who don't have water purification systems, they are cheap, they are easy to get, and they're easy to use. So we'll talk about that on a future show as well. Next up, maybe not for this time of year, although it could be helpful even during the really hot times, and that is a Mylar emergency blanket. If you're not familiar with these, they are usually kind of silvery in color. They crinkle like a bag of potato chips, or if you're from the UK, crisps, a word that I have difficulty saying. I'll try that again, like a bag of crisps. Seems like there's too many S's in that. In any event, a Mylar blanket is a heat reflecting type of thing. And what it can do is it can reflect your heat back on you. It will work when you are wet. It will work in all sorts of scenarios, and it can be a lifesaver. I've talked about them on the show, using them during winter camping to help boost the heat preservation within a tent and within a sleeping system. I think that they're important to have even in the summer because I'll tell you what, you get a thunderstorm that blows through even on a real hot 90 plus Fahrenheit degree day. Man, it can drop the temperatures way, way down with, strong breezes, and you can really find yourself in a hypothermic state quite easily even in the middle of summer. Quick story. My brother and I, years ago, this would have been back in, 2002, September of 2002, we were hiking in Bryce Canyon. Just the two of us. It was after Labor Day, so it was a much quieter time of year, and we were all alone, and then a freak thunderstorm came out of nowhere, and we ducked into the barest of alcoves. There was maybe a 6 inches of space that we could get in out of the rain. But at the same time, we had already been hit by the very cold, intense rain. And it was a hot day. And both my brother and I got cold very quickly. And he was starting to go into pre-hypothermia. So he was going into some pretty heavy shivering. And that was just off of a few seconds of exposure to that rain and wind. So in the future, I started thinking, hey, one of those dumb Mylar emergency blankets would have been pretty neat to have in the bottom of my backpack. And so I started carrying them. As a matter of course, they can become shelters. They are good at night. They're really, really multi-dimensional, multi-useful tools for you. And I would definitely recommend that you have something like that in your emergency item kit that you carry on bike tour. Next emergency item, you should think about carrying a first aid kit. This one, I hope I don't need to tell you about. I've used my first aid kit very minimally when I'm on bike tour, but when I've needed it, it's come in super, super handy. This doesn't mean you need to carry some enormous tackle box full of all sorts of different things. I think that the most important things for you to have are something to cover up cuts or abrasions. And that's usually some kind of pad, sterile pad, and some tape. Band-Aids are helpful, but often what I've noticed is it's often a lot of road rash and larger kind of gashes that will happen. Abrasions really more than anything else, not so much cuts. So something that can really cover up a large area. The other thing that I would really recommend is antibiotic ointment, and if you can, some kind of antibiotic liquid. So some kind of antiseptic, basically. Back in the day, we used to use Bactine. I'm not even sure if they make Bactine anymore, but I think it has like a little bit of an analgesic to it. So it's sort of like you got sprayed with Bactine, and it was sort of like, don't have to go to the doctor now. Awesome. Bactine to the rescue. Something like that. And the reason is that I found that if you catch an abrasion or a cut quickly with some kind of an antiseptic, the odds of it getting infected are so much lower, and it's going to heal so much better and faster. Often, especially if you take a tumble on the road, you're going to end up with a lot of grit in there. So to the extent that you can use water, perhaps from your extra water bottle, to wash and irrigate that out before you put that stuff on, it's going to make your life a lot better. I find that having a decent minimalist first aid kit can be a really good bang for the buck in terms of cost. It's really cheap, but also it's just really good to have. Again, it may not be for you. It might be for somebody that you ride with, or maybe that you come across. It can be something that can be really helpful to have. Some people, if you have advanced kind of first aid skills or something like that, perhaps you may want to consider bringing along other things as well. I've talked about this in emergency repairs. You kind of want to think about what are the most likely things to happen to you. You know, I don't recommend to people to bring a whip chain with them for emergency repairs, because frankly, you know, removing a cassette in the field is such a really low priority or low possibility thing that you'll be able to be confronting, or that you'll even want to be able to fix. So that's the kind of thing that for a lot of people, leave that at home. You know, yes, there is a possibility you could use it, but the bang for the buck is not very high in terms of weight to usefulness. For first aid kits, I say focus the same way. I mean, if for some reason you want to bring the stitch together your incredibly large cut kit, feel free to bring that. It's unlikely that that's going to be something that you'll need. Probably some sterile pads and some antiseptic would be a really good idea for you as well. And also things like ibuprofen, if that's something that you would normally take for aches and pains. Hey, you know, those of us who are maybe not in our 20s anymore, you know, like some listeners, not me or anything, but ibuprofen could be a helpful thing at the end of a day. Just saying. Next up, emergency items you should think about carrying. A cell phone. Yes, along with the first aid kit, I would say the cell phone is probably something that so many of you are also bringing, but I think that it is a helpful emergency device to have. If you eschew technology, and I know so many of you do, and you put up with me. You put up with me and my geeky tech ways. Bless you for doing that, for putting up with this podcast. But I would say, even if you don't want to be connected, I think that there's a strong argument to be having a cell phone on you in the bottom of a bag someplace, just in case something goes south. It is a nice thing that we have the ability to reach emergency services in very remote places. Obviously, your cell phone is not going to work everywhere that you go. I don't have to go too terribly far outside of the DC area on the C&O before I hit a couple of patches where there's no cell phone service within a day's ride of here. And we're talking within a day's ride of a major metropolitan area. That's pretty amazing that you can get away from it that quickly. Many of you are going to be doing rides in places where you don't have cell phone service for days on end. You know, it may be that you don't want to have it on you, but I will say that when you think about the need to get to emergency services or to contact emergency services, the difference between physically getting to it and physically getting to a place where you can get a cell phone signal out, those are two very different things. So I think carrying some kind of a device like that with you is a really good thing from an emergency perspective. people like me who have the damn thing on all the time for any of a variety of apps, for taking pictures, things like that, this is going to be in the bag no matter what. But I think from an emergency perspective, it's really good to have. And that goes hand in hand with that credit card battery or other ways of keeping it charged. Super important, and a very good backup for you as well. Kind of the more advanced version of this would be a spot. And we know that I've had friends who have had to press that spot button to get help out in the field. And those types of things, for those of you who are going to be in really remote places, I'm here to tell you, I have secondhand knowledge of a very good friend who was rescued because of a device like that. Helicopters, the whole 9 yards. So if you're going to be in a very remote place, definitely consider something like a spot, because those are the types of things that can get you rescued when you really need it. So that's sort of the more advanced varsity version of it. Cell phone first, maybe consider a spot if you're going to be in remote places. Next up on emergency items you should think about carrying, an ice card. Is this, Tim, a card made of ice? Why, no, person who asks funny questions. It is not a card made of ice. It is an emergency contact card. It means in case of emergency. It should be ISOE, I suppose, but it's called ICE, I think. So in case of emergency card, emergency contacts that give you some kind of way for, if you are unable to communicate, for someone to be able to get in touch with somebody that would care about your condition. So there are all different ways that you could have this. You could have it on a wristband. A friend of Kimberly's family recently, he's a cancer survivor, and now he has a band that is in case of emergency contacts and all sorts of medical information on the band to his Apple Watch. They make those now, which is kind of cool. So that's one way to do it. It can be a band. It could be on your Fitbit. It could be just on your watch. It could be just built as an ice band around your wrist. You can have it be on you someplace, a card that's laminated. You could have it taped to the inside of one of your panniers or in your handlebar bag. A lot of people do this on their phones. They will actually have a contact called ICE, meaning in case of emergency, so that if somebody finds your phone lying next to you and can look up ICE or look up ICE. I am not 100% positive. I believe that some mobile operating systems have that built in, that you can set up an emergency contact that can get through lock screens, things like that. So all of these things, I would recommend doing a variety of these things, because redundancy is fine in this and it's not going to cost you a ton of extra weight. So, and in case emergency card, a nice card, a band, any of these different types of ways of making sure that you can let somebody know, if you can't, who they should be contacting to let folks know what's going on with you. So that's another thing in the emergency items. Last but not least, and this one's a new one that I've added onto this list, and I don't personally carry one of these yet. So this is going to be something that maybe I should consider carrying. And that is a weather radio. Recently, again, I was in Oklahoma this past weekend, and there was a scenario where a thunderstorm came through. And this was on, I think, the local news, if I'm not mistaken. I remember seeing this, where some folks were washed away. Oh, I'm sorry. This was in Arizona. Okay, now I remember this. Entire family was really tragically washed away from a place that was a creek that was, running at normal levels. And then one of those freak thunderstorms rolled through the area, 1.5 inches of rain, and it created a 6-foot tall wall of water, and it washed some of these folks down the river, and included kids and everything. It's a terribly tragic story. And the local news reporter was putting up holding up one of those battery operated weather radios, saying, they were outside of cell phone range, so their iPhones didn't ping or anything like that. And so if you're going to be out of range for your phone giving you maybe severe weather alerts, I know I get them on my phone, this might be something to consider bringing, some kind of a small compact weather radio that you can have and you can be checking in on periodically, especially if you're going to be in places that are going to be exposed to issues like this. Or if you're going to be near a body of, creek or something like that that's running low, a thunderstorm up creek from you is going to create problems, especially in desert areas, because it just washes down really quick and you have very little time to prepare for it. So consider it a weather radio if it makes sense for you where you're going to be riding. So that's it for emergency items you should think about carrying. The credit card battery. No, not a battery for credit cards, but a credit card size battery. The extra bottle of water. The Mylar blanket. First aid kit. Cell phone. Ice card. A card that is not made of ice, but in case of emergency. And perhaps maybe a weather radio as well. Those are the things that I think you might want to consider carrying with you on your next bike tour. Next up is connections, and we've got some really great news, as I talked about at the top of the show, from Pedalshift Society member Mr. T. Literally minutes before I sat down before this fine microphone to record the show, Mr. T wrote in and told me and told us that Alaska Airlines has changed their sports equipment policy and pricing. They now will fly your bicycle for $25 each way. It used to be $75. It's now $25. Alaska used to be one of your better options in the U.S. Now it's not even close. $25 each way. If you are a frequent flyer of theirs and you're in their MVP club society thing, whatever it is that it's called MVP, or you're lucky enough to be flying first class, in which case, hello there, you get to fly your bike for free. It counts as part of your luggage quantity, which is pretty great too. Overweight fees still apply. So you'll want to make sure that you're not, stuffing in bricks of gold and stuff or all of your camping gear inside the same box or bag or hard side case that you're shipping your bike in. But this is a huge win for bike touring in the US. I'll compare. $25 is how much Amtrak charges for me to get my bike down the on the rails down the C&O. So to be able to fly across country or, just across state on Alaska Airlines for $25 is pretty amazing. I am going to be flying. Actually, I'm going to be on a code share. I'm going to be on Virgin America, and it'll be interesting. I will double check on this for the next show, but I'm going to be flying in September out to San Francisco. And I was originally going to bring my Brompton and kind of do some riding in and around. And I still may bring the Brompton just because I like the Brompton. But for $50, $25 each way, I could bring my full-size touring bike if I want. And that's pretty interesting as a possibility to be able to really lower the cost of transporting things. If Alaska Airlines flies where you are going to be flying, they seem to be kind of one of the no-brainers in terms of travel now. I fly them quite frequently because there is a direct flight out of DC to Portland. And as many of you know, I find myself in Portland quite a bit. So they're also merging with Virgin America. So they're now going to be doing a lot of stuff over on the West Coast of the United States. If you are going to be flying with your bike, factor in costs for the bike transport as well when you're pricing tickets. Alaska may not always be necessarily the cheapest ticket out there, but if you're flying with a bike, it may be your best, cheapest option. And they also happen to be pretty awesome. I like flying them. Unabashed opinion. I like them. They're probably my favorite airline these days. And I'm now doubly into them because of this much cheaper $25 each way fly your bike or other sporting equipment as well. That's just freaking amazing. I love it. So check out the show notes, pedalshift.net/087. I've got a link to their blog that describes all of this. And yay, Alaska Airlines. And as Mr. T says, and I agree, I would like to see other airlines, domestic carriers here in the United States to match that. I'd like everywhere in the world to do that. I'd like it to all be free, but I wish for many things, but I'll take the $25. It could be a lot more expensive on some of the legacy carriers out there. So for Alaska to do this is an awesome thing, and we'll probably get a lot of people to fly them. So we'll see how that all goes. Thank you, Alaska Airlines. One more thing in connections. We've got another 5-star review from somebody who I dare say gets it. This is from SU Hoops 44. Thank you, SU Hoops 44, for this 5-star fun and entertaining cycling info review. I don't tour yet, says SU Hoops 44, but Tim's podcast is great info for when I eventually do. In the meantime, it is very entertaining and good info, even for my one-day rides. Go Cuse. So SU Hoops 44 not only has seemingly stolen my future screen name on iTunes, SU Hoops 44 obviously has wonderful taste in college basketball teams, college football teams, college teams generally. And as you know, the reason why this show is bathed in orange is because Syracuse is my alma mater. And if you want to get on my show, all you have to do is say things like Go Cuse and have screen names like SU Hoops 44. Or if you'd like to bypass all of that, just give a 5-star review. I like to read them on the show. It's always fun to hear from you all, even if you're going to bathe me in the 5-star reviews of iTunes. By the way, the reason why I humbly ask for your reviews on iTunes is, for whatever reason, there is some dark magic in Cupertino that means that if we get good reviews on iTunes, I guess it's called Apple Podcasts now. I should call it Apple Podcasts. Whether you do it in the Apple Podcast app or you do it in iTunes on your computer or wherever, this dark magic apparently means that the show will get featured more often and more people who are interested in bikey podcasts will get exposed to it. I don't know how that works, but I know it happens. So 5-star reviews are super, super, super appreciated, but so are the 4, 3, 2s and 1s. Although if you're going to give me a 2 or a 1, I wouldn't mind if you emailed me to tell me why you were venturing down that path. We'll just put it that way. But thank you, SU Hoops 44, for your exquisite taste, not only in the finer educational institutions of America, but also for bikey podcasts like this one. And we'd like to close out the show with a big thank you, as always, to the supporters of the show through the Pedalshift Society. If you like what you hear, you can help maintain Pedalshift as an independent, listener-supported voice while expanding the offerings. We're talking $5, $2, or even $1 a month can help with the cost of hosting the podcast and the website and all of the various things out there. You can do it for a bit and cancel it at any time. One-shot support's always welcome. If you're not into the small monthly thing, there's also Pedalshift Plus and lots of cool things you can get there. Check it all out. Join pedalshift.net/society or pedalshift.net/plus. On to the society. Ethan Georgi, Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lane, Andrew MacGregor, Michael Hart, Josiah Matthews, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittus, Thomas Skadow, Seth Krieger, Marco Lowe, Terrance Manson, Noah Schroer, Harry Telgadas, John Sikorski, Richard Killian, Chris Barron, Scott Taylor, Brian Wren, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Paul Mulvey, Stuart Buchan, Todd Stutz, Good News Provider Mr. T, Roxy Arning, Nathan Poulton, Harry Hugel, Ferguson Meek, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Ruth Divorcey, Michelle Miller, Matthew Lewis, Michael Baker, Billy Crafton, and new to this episode, Paul Culbertson, and to all past and anonymous members of the Pedalshift Society for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net. Lots of great content. You can hear the Pedalshift Project through iTunes or your favorite podcast aggregator. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his debut album. Track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Habitat, wherever cool music is available.